Hey guys, it's IC Alexander again, and today we're going to do something interesting. We're going to compare the two major valve systems in pump guns. The Nelson valve, like a CCI Phantom, and of course the wonderful, basically Sheridan style valve, which you'll find in Cocker's, old PMI Pursuit pistol brass guns, anything like that, Palmer's guns, all sorts of stuff. I do apologize as well, I know I've been a little lacking, but anyways, let's get on to the show. Firstly, let's take a look at the Nelson valve and how it's great. So I'm going to actually show you a Nelson valve. So just give me a second to pop this spring open. Okay. So unscrew a little thumb screw here. Put there. Pull it out, and there's basically a traditional Nelson valve. I would show you all the parts, but well, you have to get my channel locks and other such things. So just to show you, this is screwed into a back bottle adapter, but you can screw it into any number of adapters. I've got the dropout valve and other such things, or the dropout body. So this is the power tube, and then behind that there is a spacer and a cup seal which prevents leaks, and then there's a valve spring. So that's basically how a Nelson valve is comprised. Most Nelson valve guns are what are called inline. Pardon me for here. I'm just putting the Phantom back together. So most Nelson valves, like I said, are inline, which means your valve, your hammer, and your bolt are all in one line, not in stacked tubes, like, say, for example, the autococker. Now, how is a Nelson valve really good? Well, most Nelson valves inherently have auto trigger functionality, meaning you can hold the trigger down, and as soon as you pump, the gun will fire. Which means if you need it, you can fire off a burst of 3 or 4 shots. Real simple. Well, why is that kind of bad? Well, it means that a lot of Nelson valve guns become basically inconvenient semis, meaning you just hold the trigger and pump, and it's like a semi-auto gun, which is kind of a peeve off to a lot of pump purists. So, anyways, that's basically how a Nelson gun works, and you'll find Nelson valve, or not a Nelson gun, a Nelson valve rather, but you'll find Nelson valves in a number of guns. The CCI Phantom is the most popular Nelson valve-based gun. Then you have the Tracer, both the old one and the new one made by Empire Paintball. You've also got in the Nelson category the Buzzard, the Box Gun, the Redux. What else is in Nelson? Like I said, the old style Tracers. Lots of other things. Basically, any gun that's an inline style like this, probably 99 times out of 100, going to be a Nelson valve. So that's the Nelson valve, and sort of why it's good. Now let's take a look at the basically the Sheridan style valve, which you'll find in Cockers. These are a little different because, as you'll notice, when I pump it, with of course the Nelson valve, it was a very smooth. It's a one stage. There's no break. There's no definable point that you have to push back against any real resistance. Well, with a Sheridan gun like this, watch, there's 2 stages. There's first stage, which gets you back to the back of the spring, and then that second stage, click, which some people prefer. I happen to really, really like the pump stroke on Sheridan valve markers. That's why I've owned several of them. I actually really enjoy the pump stroke on my Phantom, and it really comes close to being a Cocker-like, or not a Cocker-like, a Sheridan-like pump stroke with the undercocking kits. That does help things. Anyways, how is this gun different? Well, firstly, most guns that are going to use a Sheridan valve are what are called stacked tube, which means you have your bolt, and that's it. Your bolt in the top tube, and then your bolt, your breech, your barrel, all one line. In your bottom tube, you have your valve, and then you have your hammer, of course. There's a cocking rod. Then there's a spring here. The spring is right after that is the hammer. Then after that is the valve, which is kind of in here. Now, like I said, they differ. One, the pump stroke is way different. The trigger pulls on most Sheridan guns tend to be kind of a crisp. They're a little heavier, but they're more defined. As well, a lot of the Sheridan valve guns are usually older. The Sheridan valve was, I don't know if it was invented before the Nelson valve, but the Sheridan valve really took hold in the 80s. So that's kind of the Sheridan valve. Sorry about that. So basically, why are the Nelson and Sheridan valve? Why do you have proponents and opponents of each? Well, you got your guys that are smaller players. I'm not a big guy, and I happen to like. I like a few things. I like Nelson valve guns because normally they're incredibly lightweight. They don't have a lot of incredibly huge parts because they're very simple. Because you can put everything, like I said, in one line, throw it into a really lightweight body, really lightweight trigger frame. Off you go. This gun weighs, I think, about 2 pounds, maybe less. Fully loaded, probably maybe 3 pounds. Now, this gun and most other Sheridans are. This is, of course, made of all aluminum, and then the bolts is a steel bolt, and all the other parts are basically stainless steel. So these guns, they tend to have a little more heft, which can be a good thing because it's keeps it more on target. Whereas the pump spring on or pump stroke on a Phantom rather, it's so light and the gun is so light that it kind of throws the barrel around a little bit when you're pumping. Which, if you've got it with the back bottle and you're resting the stock right in the top of your shoulder, isn't bad. If you're playing with a dropout valve and playing more modified stock class, not exactly too bad either. With that being said, on these guns, well, an L stock is almost a necessity. Or you can run them bottom line, and then, that kind of solves that problem too. Anyways, like I said, there's a number of, pros and cons on those. I would say a big pro for most Nelson valve guns is that if you're a smaller player, a younger player, if there's, players at your field that are, 11, 12, 13, that don't want to heft around a rather, hefty Sheridan, admittedly, with a large tank on it, and, they're hefting around a lot and their arms get tired. Well, starting them off with a Nelson valve gun like a Phantom, probably a great idea, because it's nice, it's light, they can run with it real fast. If they need to get out of a jam, they've got the auto trigger functionality, and that's why these guns are great. Not only that, but, CCI customer service is great too, and customer service for most of the Nelson valve companies is excellent. That's one of the major pros for the Nelson valve. Now the pros of the Sheridan valve. Well, the pros of the Sheridan valve are usually the fact that Sheridan valves, if you're like me, where you really like to stay on target in between pumps, well, that extra heft can really do that for you. Like I can hold this gun up, I don't have a tank on it, and watch. I'll show you here. The barrel doesn't move too much when I pump. Now I'll show you the pump stroke, the same thing with the Phantom. And as I pump, the barrel jerks around a little bit, as you could probably tell. So that's kind of what that is. So I would say, like I said, younger players, start them off with a Phantom, a Tracer, something like that that's a little lighter, a little easier to run with. If you're an older player, or you're like me, you like a little heft to your gun so you can stay on target, well, snipers, anything with a Sheridan valve that's made of brass, that's where it's at. But, like I said, that's just my own personal opinion. I'm not preaching one over the other. I'm just saying that each have their pros and cons, and that's sort of how they work. I hope you found this video informative and, everything else. I'm going to keep it on YouTube. I'll throw it up on Facebook and Twitter. I might throw it up on MCB too. I know there was a fairly lengthy discussion of my autographer versus automag video because that's been an ongoing debate for years, but okay, that's a little outside my topic scope. Anyways, that's my my little topic for this week. Next week, I'm not sure what I'll do. I might explore maybe high pressure air versus CO2 or something like that, or I might go into some of the politics of paintball, if you will, which is getting mighty interesting with PBN and Tech PB and M. Carter Brown and any number of other small regional little forums that are on the internet and all sorts of stuff that goes on. Anyways, like I said, I hope you found this video informative, so PM me, email me, if you have me on Facebook or Twitter, message me if you want. Thanks, and I'll talk to you guys later. Cheers.